Hello there, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are. It's me, Alison, your Furbolg friend here in the UK. I started over that because that's new. I've got a couple of notices before we start today's episode on a brand new chapter in the Pod of Many Things. So the first notice, as you can see, many of you might see from my socials and stuff, we've had a bit of a rebrand here at the Pod of Many Things. My Twitter, Instagram and stuff used to all be the Pod of Many Things, but now to open myself up to variety, I've changed my name to Furbolg Friend UK. So if you see that guy appearing anywhere, it's me. Hi, how you doing? Not much has changed apart from the length of my hair, the amount of grey in it, and the beard. In terms of the second thing that we have to announce today is, as you can see at the top there, we are no longer just the Pod of Any Things, we are the Pod of Any Things X Cavern of Roles, which is our new chapter where myself, Manadort John, Charging Badger, we all know them, we all love them, we've played many Commander games with them on stream and stuff. We're kind of collabing together to make a website and create a group in order to motivate each other, help each other out, and make sure that we have enough to go around, because as you all know, I'm a bit lazy. If somebody's not there to hold my hand, I don't want to do it, okay? It's how my marriage happened, it's how my son happened. No, I'm joking. But yeah, so I'm really excited for these new opportunities that I'm going to have with the Cavern of Roles. I'm really excited to the people we're going to meet, and I'm really excited for you guys to come on this journey with me. So without further ado, let's start that journey with the first episode, Wandering's Call, the tabletop role-playing game Kickstarter with Shaun M Vale. And Shaun, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, telling us about yourself a little bit and where we can find you.
Emmy, well, hi everyone, I'm Shaun M Vale. I'm the lead writer and project lead on Wandering's Call, brand new tabletop roleplay game. You can find me basically anywhere on the internet, just look for Shaun M Vale. And yeah, Wandering's Call, just search Wandering's Call on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube as well now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning then. You've obviously created a TTRPG project, a tabletop role-playing game product. What's your background and history with tabletop RPGs then?
Crikey. Yeah, I've been playing them quite a while now. Probably best part of 15 years, I want to say. So not as long as some people, but I was basically the only person in our group who wanted to DM. This was Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
Okay.
About a decade ago. So I actually DM'd for about 2 years before I even played the game.
Nice.
Which was sort of in the deep end. And yeah, ever since then, I've just picked up other systems as I've gone. I'm actually a writer as well, of fiction. So it kind of all just led together, really. Drew a lot of inspiration from things like the World of Darkness type games, Vampire the Masquerade, which I played an awful lot of as well. So
yeah,
very varied.
Understood. So fiction writer as in published anything, or is that something you just do on the side, or?
I have a poetry anthology that's published.
Nice.
That was, first year of lockdown. When was that? 2020. Who knows? Time. In the last few years. I also have a D&D 5th edition campaign setting book that's published as well. Over there somewhere. Called The Eastern Realms.
Nice.
Yeah, that was actually my first Kickstarter. Again in 2020. So I did very well. I thought I'd try again.
So your experience with Kickstarter, because I've interviewed a couple of people who've done Kickstarters, and they're interesting beasts, and hopefully we can get into that a bit later after we've learnt about the game and how it works and stuff like that. So Wandering's Call then. If you bump into me in the elevator, I am able to fully fund your TTRPG dream and everything in that elevator ride. You've got what, couple of minutes max. You got to pitch it to me. What's your elevator pitch for Wandering's Call then?
Wandering's Call, yes. So it's a rules light, roleplay heavy tabletop roleplay game. It's set in a modern setting. There's no maths whatsoever, which I know a lot of people quite enjoy. And yeah, you basically play a person who has this supernatural instinct that makes them wander. It's an instinct you cannot ignore, or it will do very bad things. Even the wanderers themselves, as they're called, don't know where this comes from. They just know it's a thing. And it's a game about mystery, about horror, about the paranormal. There are things out there that love wanderers' souls. They're very, very tasty. And it's... I think you used a really good word before. It's like a grey, morally grey game, where it's one of those. Being a wanderer is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Really, it's just very fun, rules light, roleplay heavy.
It's a succinct pitch there. I like it. I'd say you were funded based on that, but. Yeah, so Wandering's Call, from what I understand, like you say, is a rules light. Is based mainly on rolling a set amount of dice and getting a set amount of successes. Is it 4 and above is a success, or is it?
No, a six on the dice.
6 on the dice. Okay, just checking, because I was like, is it 4? Like I think I've got that. Let me just check my notes. Yep, I've got that. Like so 6 on dice is a success, and the more successes you have, the better you are at doing something. So like you say, no maths. It's not like the only maths you have is like how many dice you have to roll at a time, because you can, like, for however many pips you have, that's how many dice you can roll, etc, etc. Yeah, like, so yeah,
counting sixes, if I guess you could count as maths, but that's literally all there is to it. Yeah, more dice is more good. The way the system's set up is you have less chance to fail with more dice as well. Sometimes if like a 1, like in this system, is a failure, if you roll more dice, you have more chance of rolling a failure as well. But we managed to craft it so that doesn't happen. Yeah,
because isn't it like your failures only like rack up if you've rolled no successes at all? Is that the? Yeah. So yeah, you've rolled 6 dice. You've got 1 6, and like about all the rest are 1s. Those failures don't really matter because you've got that 6 in the first place. It's when you go to the point where, oh my god, you've got 6 1s there, where shit hits the fan, I guess.
Yeah, bad ones.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's really interesting. I quite like the elegance of that, to be honest with you, and I do. Before we get into like the lore building, because that's going to probably be quite a task, because I like it, and there's a lot to it considering it's so little, if that makes sense, and that's not a criticism. I quite like systems like that. I like systems that are small, succinct, but have a lot of depth to them. And I feel like your storytelling does that in this system, because the mechanics are very elegant and simple. Even your character sheet, I want to talk to you about your character sheet, because it is like very, very simple and plain. Like there's not like all thousands and thousands of boxes, and like it's like, here are the stats, here are your specialisms, here are your soul powers, like boom boom boom, here's your name, you've got a little box for a description if you want to write one, and your inventory slots. If I like, it's very clean and straightforward. Is that something that you aimed for whilst you were making this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a sort of a common theme throughout the system. There's a lot of like guidance rather than rules, if that makes sense. So a lot of the parts of the book will say, maybe write this down on a piece of paper. It doesn't need its own little slot because it might not be for everybody. Sort of thing. Little bits on the character sheet for inventory if you want to track that sort of thing. Interestingly, inventory isn't really tracked in the system either.
No.
For basic things, like if you had your full backpack with you and you needed a flick knife to trim a bit of wood, you probably have one.
Yeah.
Like, you're used to being on the road as a wanderer, you will have a little knife. So there's no point, I think, kind of in any system really, tracking that sort of thing. It just adds work.
Yeah, it's the devil isn't in those details, if that makes sense. I feel in the system, it's about clarity, literacy. Like, I feel like you've achieved that very well. Was that something that you were in charge of, or did your team like help contribute to that? Or
I think 95% of the mechanics is me. So yeah, I'm not the only one working on this project. I've got two other amazing creative friends. Long-standing friend Robin Storm, that's his actual name. He's a very cool name. He's developed a lot of the lore. He's like a TTRPG genius, like amazing DM, GM, terrifying GM at Vampire. Who has some good sessions. And then Amy, she's our sort of lead artist. She's coming up with all this amazing sort of artwork. I do have a little bit of a background in maths as well. I used to be a data analyst.
Nice.
And worked in marketing as well. So yeah, I did all the crunchy maths and then wrote some Python code to actually make sure it, like, the real world matched the probabilities and stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. So in turn, you mentioned like Vampire and World of Darkness, and like I think people might draw that from the mechanics. Did you take ideas for the mechanics from those systems then? Obviously you've tweaked them. I would say personally, from my experience with Vampire, you've simplified them. Is that what you were aiming for? Is that, well, not aiming for, I keep using that word. Was that what you did, or was that part of the process, or looking at other games and taking inspiration from their mechanics, or did you think you'd come onto an original thing and then look back and go, oh, I've just made like Vampire Light, like, and again, that's not an insult.
It'd be nice if it's successful as a Vampire Masquerade. That would be fantastic. Well, yeah, the three main systems that were my inspiration, that I sort of took bits from and then simplified and then, threw in bits and pieces of our own ideas, are Vampire the Masquerade for sure, because of the pips and rolling bazillions of dice. Fate, Fate Core specifically, and D&D. They're all really, really good systems at what they do. I think Vampire and D&D in particularly D&D, there's just too many rules. I was actually talking to someone about this morning, because there are so many rules about everything. New players don't realise what they can do outside of that scope, if that makes sense. Yeah,
you can't trim away the hedges to the cool stuff. You kind of like feel a bit penned in sometimes.
It's like you have a list of things you can do, and then you sort of fall into the trap of, like, that's all I can do, which is not the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted that simplicity, but I didn't want it to be too, like, so simple, like, here's the rules, be on your way sort of thing. There's a lot of the book is dedicated to sort of guidance around, like, role playing and building characters, because a lot of people do struggle with an open book.
Yeah,
like, there's like too many like things they can choose. So yeah, it's about bringing all our experience with like tabletop role play games into just distilling that into just guidance.
Yeah,
what's worked for us and so on.
I don't like. We kind of talked about this before we started the podcast. It kind of reminds me quite a lot of the Forged in the Dark system, which is what's used to in Blades in the Dark, And I don't know if they did the same sort of thing, like took things from like Vampire, etc., to make them simpler, because they have a lot more like successes, and the amount of successes you roll determine the level of your success, and much like with your game. And I suppose it is a common way to do things, like 3 successes is better than 1. Like succeeding at 3 things, or succeeding at something at times 3 is better than succeeding at it times 1. You know, so that's a really interesting development that you've kind of like accidentally stumbled into, like this Forged in the Dark-esque.
Game, so
it's really fun. It's very cinematic. It's Blades in the Dark is like you make your own like criminal gang, and like and there's like ghosts and stuff in that as well. So it's a bit like Victorian era London, but like if you're not careful, you can accidentally like get a ghost haunting you and stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting, and it's very cinematic, and I feel like this could be very cinematic. And I think one of the things that makes the system that you've made cinematic is the idea of this under layer world, like that sits below. I like the idea of, you've said in the book that it doesn't have to be modern. Like it could be it could be in high fantasy, it could be in like sci-fi, etc. I like the idea of it being like under like the modern world. So I suppose we start there, and then we'll start branching off into all your like lore and stuff, which, like I described, is there's not a lot of it, but there's so much depth that you can have with it, and so much fun you can have with it. So I think you should really take a bow with that one. So why did you think it was a good idea to start at the modern, like, and give the base thing, like, this is good in a modern setting? Because even the introduction, little foreword that you wrote, is like a modern day experience. So why do you think this system suits the modern day more?
It was, I think, more kind of where I think it was 2 things actually. One, where the idea came from originally, which was an idea from Robin actually, and we were going to write it into a play, possibly a short story. It wasn't quite the same. It was very similar though, and that just happened to be in a modern setting. So when we were developing the game, kind of from that core idea, we just sort of carried it on from that. So it just seemed very natural. And the other one is fantasy. Even fantasy roleplay games are a bit saturated on the market at the moment, I think is fair to say, because of the whole business with the D&D, OGL, and things. A lot of like fantasy type things have popped up, and there was a lot already anyway. So yeah, I just wanted something a little bit different. Things like vampire work so well in the modern setting, and again Fate does as well. Like Call of Cthulhu quite a bit as well. Obviously that's like a pre-war type setting, but can be played in modern as well. We have done. So yeah, it just seemed to have naturally fit, really. I think I say there's lots in the book about tweaking it for different settings as well. So
yeah,
it's that's what we envisaged the game, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Sorry, by the way, if during that you could hear my Twitch going off. I've not Twitch, my Discord going off. I've got streamer mode enabled, but for some reason it's not cancelling my notification. So I could hear you. I'm sorry. If it looked like I was being rude on my phone, 1, my notes are on it. 2, I was like frantically like, how do I mute these servers? So because Vampire's thing is kind of this anachronistic thing of like these vampires who've been around for a long time adapting to their modern surroundings and stuff. And I feel like one of the cool things about this is it's kind of backwards. It's kind of modern people having to deal with a life that is like almost forgotten, the life of a traveller and a wanderer, and like never being able to stay in one place for too long. Like that's like an era that we don't do. We set down roots, we stay somewhere, we make families, we build relationships, and in this game we go back to that life of like the vagabond and the like almost like the Ronin in like Japanese culture. Like I've got no direction. I don't really know where I'm going. I just know that I have to go, sort of thing, and that's really interesting. So with that, we can pivot into the Wanderers, like because we've mentioned them. What are Wanderers, and what is it about them that makes them so special?
So Wanderers, they have this instinct. That's the best word I can think to describe it. It's basically in their late teens, early 20s. This power sort of manifests fully. It starts off sort of early teens, but then manifests fully as you get a bit older. And yeah, it's just this instinct that just makes every inch of your body need to go in a specific direction. And part of this sort of awakening, so to speak, is things you sort of imagine actually start happening around you. And as this power builds and you get more control of it, you realise it's like there's this internal power coming from somewhere that you can tap into. So it's just soul power for mechanical purposes. But yeah, so you get all these wonderful powers, but the trade-off is that, like you say, you just can't put down roots anymore. You just have to move. That's where a lot of the greyness comes in, because once you've completed whatever the wandering wants you to complete at that particular stage, you might not get another call for months. It could be weeks. It could be in 2 hours. You just never know. And a good chunk of the game is like, how do you react to that? Like, it's a modern setting. You need money. Do you steal? Do you turn to other things? Do you have skills that maybe you can get a little job somewhere, but you might be gone in a week? So yeah, there's a lot of character development. They're very interesting people, I think, are Wanderers, because they carry their lives around with them. Let's say in the book, like their rucksack becomes their entire world. It's like a massive faux pas for one Wanderer to touch another Wanderer's like rucksack.
Yeah,
entire world.
Yeah, I really like that idea of like the Wandering almost being like this sentient thing, like sending them on like missions. Obviously it's a lot more mysterious than that. Like, you never at any point say like that it's sentient or anything like that, or if it's actually sending them there on purpose. You just get this idea of like, sometimes you run into other Wanderers and you form a group, and then, because I think that's the most heartbreaking thing as well that I read in the playtest materials that you sent me, is like you can be like made to go and find other Wanderers, and you pick them up and you get this family and you have them for a long time, and then eventually all of you are ticking down to this idea of like, oh no, because eventually we're going to go our separate ways. Like, it is just like a ticking time bomb of like, I love these people, but eventually, like,
it's tough, but I think with that toughness, again, with any dark game, I think, Vampire particularly, I know we've mentioned that a few times, it's the darkness that makes the sort of the human side come out more, and when you have the good points, they just elevates them.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. When there's darkness, there's light, and all that jazz. Like, one can't exist without the other, and like, I think there's a real cool opportunity with this system because of the fact that how Wandering works. You can have a really fun thing where like every session or couple of sessions, every arc, you like jump to a different character or a different set of characters because of the fact like your character, much like this group of people, much like their purpose, isn't permanent. So you could like almost like I don't know if you've played GTA 5, but you know when you switch characters and it like zooms out and then you zoom in, and I like that idea of like and then you come to these other wanderers,
transient,
because why so obviously we keep talking about the idea of like travel and routes and stuff like that. Why that specific feeling? I know this is like philosophical now. Like you're like, I'm here to talk about my Kickstarter, dude, and I'm here like, why the philosophical? Do you feel like get the psychiatrist couch out? I'm ready. Like I'm in no way qualified. Just making you aware. Why wandering? Why did you want to capture that feeling of like like we say transience, like
it again, there's a few reasons. We sort of touched on it a little bit. It does make the system very sort of flexible. A lot of systems set up, I don't know how to word this, they're set up to direct you from place to place and locations and
go from A to B to C to D.
That doesn't necessarily mean railroading. It's just part of the system is that there is a dungeon over here, then we need to go to the dungeon and or whatever. Whereas this is, like you say, that wanderers do get a feeling that this wandering is sentient because it does make them go to places that need sorting out. So it just adds that sort of air of mystery to it. And the other big reason is it's an amazing game master tool.
Yeah.
It's especially for one shots. It's like the reason you are all together is because you have to be.
Also, as well, what you call GMs or dungeon masters in this game, you call them marshals, which is like the best use of a word in context ever. Because I think of Macbeth. I think of like, and it marshals me the way I should go, like sort of thing, like the way I was to go. Sorry, and I'm like, oh, it's so good. Like so, props on that too.
I thought of that, Shakespeare. But we took a long time to decide on that word. But yeah, we did want this word that suggested guidance rather than sort of pushing directional. Like games master, dungeon master, even like storyteller is a bit like, oh, I'm this nebulous being that is in control of everything, whereas marshal is like trying to herd cats.
Yeah,
it's like keep things going in this rough direction, please.
That's a great way to like look at it and put it. So I think it's a really good. So you've got this thing inside you, and this allows you, like this feeling, this pull, this instinct, that makes you wander, that makes it so you go to these places, and to what comes with this, like the trade-off for this, if you will, is that you can manipulate and consume, if I'm correct, the parts of your soul in order to gain powers. Like and these powers can range from strengthening your bones to make you like super strong, to being able to climb sheer surfaces, and sometimes big, massive things. Like for example, burning like the sun is the note I've got here.
Final burn.
The final burn, burning up like the sun. So let's talk about those powers. What are these powers? Why did you decide that this was the way you wanted your powers to work? Because you could have just had like, you are druidically magical or something like that. Now you chose the soul. You chose very specific, like, it affects you, and when it affects somebody else, it's a big thing. let's talk about that. Why soul powers?
It all stemmed from wanting like a mechanical system that was roleplay based. So we decided on soul power. It again with everything in this book, it's not this is the power of your soul. There's a power inside of you that when you use it to do all these cool things, you start to feel less of a person. Like as your soul power gets lower and lower, you become like lethargic. You like can't concentrate on things, and you start to lose like your drive and things.
Yeah, it's like when you ignore the call as well. That kind of sort of thing happens, doesn't it? Because you slowly deplete. Yeah,
but that's even like more so than that. You eventually just go basically mad. Your soul stops. You're cut off from the wandering, and you basically just become a zombie, for want of a better word, just mindless sort of animal.
Kind of like His Dark Materials when you get separated from your demon.
Yeah, like, very much exactly like that. Yeah, it's like you've lost a part of yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, this soul power, you can use it in like one of two ways. It can be internal things, so like you say, you can make yourself stronger or faster or improve your eyesight, or one of the examples actually in the book is eye colour. Wanderers can change their eye colour as they want, but if they wanted to, say, change their iris to be the exact pattern of someone else's, that's when you start using soul power, because it's a very exact change.
Yeah.
So if you needed to get through like a retina scanner or something, you could literally change your eye to be exactly like someone else's.
Yeah. Because then that, I like the way you use that example as well, because then that gives you like other examples. Like you could, if you can do it with your eyes, you can do it with your fingerprints and stuff like that. Like again, small, not very detailed examples give depth to like a lot of possibility, rather than like you can change your eye color to this, and this, and like yeah.
Because there are no spells in this, all there is guidance as to roughly what sort of power level things could be. So generally speaking, so to finish what I was talking about before, the other thing, you've got internal and you've got projection, obviously. So you can shoot fireballs, or I don't know, tear a door off from across the room, or control, or put people to sleep. Anything that's outside of your body. The
implication being that projection costs a lot more soul power than internal stuff, like from what I read.
Yeah. Again, you can do very, very minor things without using soul power, so you could sort of think of them as like D&D cantrips almost. Like the non-damaging cantrips.
Like so this prestidigitation, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can make a little sparkle maybe, but if you wanted a sparkle over there in that colour, that size, then you would need like soul power. But it's really good, and the more soul power you want to pump into a thing, the more powerful it is.
And but that consumes more of your soul, and then like you say, you become. From what I understand, 0 is obviously death, but like you're basically going towards catatonic, because you're feeding on yourself, your essence or something, is the best way I could.
Yep, exactly that, and for the very same reason that you don't have hit points in this system either. When you take damage, you can either take it off your brawn, so your physicality, your fitness, or your soul power. So it's a very precious resource that you've got to manage, and you can turn your physical stats, or cores as we call them, into soul power, and vice versa.
Yeah, so you can take a pip.
Well, it's 2 pips of core for 1 pip of soul power. So you basically everything's a trade-off in Wanderers. So you can have physical form and your soul, and you need to trade off one for the other, basically.
Nice. So in terms of like so you've got these people, and they've got these powers. One thing I will say that I didn't quite, and I don't know if you've left this out of the playtest for whatever reason, is I couldn't quite understand who the enemies are, apart from like hunger, other human beings, but you've got this awesome foreword, like I've kind of mentioned earlier, or like introduction of this thing. Like it's just like it's a person, but it's not a person, and it's kind of like semi-terrifying. That it's like chasing down this wanderer to like eat their soul, basically. And and so my main my main takeaway from this, because like I say, simplistic but full of depth, is like I didn't understand who the enemies were. So is that something you're willing to share with us, or is that something that you want people to pick up when they...
Actually, a bit. I did very purposefully leave it out the documents I sent you. There's definitely lore in there, but no, that creature in the foreword is what's called a follower, and that is what they do. They never stop. They will find you and they will eat us all. Very powerful, very scary, supernatural being that kind of look human if you were to just sort of glance at them, but I don't want to say any more than that, just that they're one of the main enemies.
Okay.
And it's very much if you see one, run.
Yeah,
kind of situation. Unless there's a big group of you, and you might, if you're lucky, take one down.
It's like the agents in the Matrix kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But there's lots and lots of enemies. There's yourself. There's the situations that the wandering puts you into. They're quite often dangerous. You know how much I want to say, because I think that a lot of the fun of this game is figuring out what the baddies are.
Yeah.
But there are human enemies that know wanderers exist, and want to capture you for various nefarious means. And yeah, there's a few other supernatural beings as well. It's quite low fantasy, in that there's not like lots and lots of pixies and spirits and things like that.
So,
it's very
urban fantasy, isn't it? Very much like...
Yeah, very, very much. There's a cult as well, which I'll just drop that in there, but I'm not going to say any more than that.
Fair enough.
But very fanatical. Again, they know wanderers exist, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's very dark.
Yeah.
It's that cult. That's cult's off for now.
Well, that's a cool segue into like the morally grey aspects of this lore, because you're just wondering that shouldn't conjure up questions of morality in the way that I think this game does. So why did you go with that grey tone, that idea of like you are going to have to make decisions that you may not be able to live with, like, and obviously you pre-warn in the beginning, like, doesn't give you an excuse to be a real life asshole sort of thing, but like you are going to have to deal with things that are grim, like, and that are, when we're not talking about grim dark as in like you're lopping off body parts and stuff, but you are going to have to lie to people. You are going to have to like maybe break into a car and then you find out that car belongs to somebody and it's their only way of getting to work, and they're like minimum wage, and you've like put them behind on their rent and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of like almost like a grey downward spiral into like moral judgment and moral character. Is why go there instead of like we're all heroes, we wander about and we go and solve all the world's problems? Like, why not that, which is what most games do, let's be honest. It's very rare like that you get a morally complex or a morally grey, unless you specifically set that out. So why did you make that like the default tone of this game?
I think it's just something we're interested in. We love all the sort of hero-y stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I play D&D at least once, twice a week. But yeah, we just wanted that to be a little different. And again, I think if you are all sort of heroic, that falls back into mechanics quite quickly as well. I think this game, with it being so roleplay heavy and sort of encouraged to be so, that slightly sort of darker tone really helps with that, I think. Because conflict makes stories. It doesn't matter what the conflict is. It makes stories. And having that conflict slightly internalized into your character, I think, is like a really interesting thing to work through, because how do you deal with all of these things you're having to do?
Yeah.
Because you have to do them, because the wandering is forcing you in that direction.
Yeah.
I will say as well, the wandering doesn't force you into a very specific location. It can't go, you need to go to this room now.
No.
That very much descends into like railroading.
You end up in like the town where something weird's happening. And then it's your thing is to go around the town and look for the mystery. It's like the Mystery Machine, isn't it? The Mystery Machine doesn't take the Scooby-Doo gang to like the specific problem. It like goes to a place and then there's a problem there.
I think that's, again, this is a bit Call of Cthulhu, that when we've played is the issues aren't immediately obvious. I think it's a really fun storytelling tool to slowly drip in these things, and players are like, what's going on there? Because they know something's up, because again, the wanderings put them here for a reason, and if they try and leave, then the wandering comes back and it draws them back again.
Because that's a cool thing about the wandering as well, is like, again, like, as well as like that idea of like the sadness of like the group eventually splitting off and etc. Like, there's almost like that ticking time bomb of waiting for the other shoe to drop now as well, because you're like, the wanderings brought me here because so you just kind of it's a really, like I said, like the lore itself, it like is simple and minute, but it's not shallow, because you have these, because I think one of the cool things as well, you kind of like this is in the book that I had, so like the cool like symbols, even those like cool like Thieves' Cant-esque symbols that are like on follower ally places. So like you might go to a garage and like it has like the symbol for safety on it or something like that, or work available or something like that. That you guys recognise, like, because you see them all the time, and like from what I understand, like the wandering kind of makes you understand those symbols as well and spot them. Like
you when you have your awakening, you seem to gain this sort of baseline knowledge level that sometimes you don't even realise you have it until you need it. That makes sense.
Yeah, makes complete sense.
That was a thematic choice, but it was also a mechanical choice. When it was working out probabilities and how many dice you need to be a reasonable chance of success, it just made things flow a lot better if everyone could attempt everything. You might not succeed, probably won't, but there's a law reason why everyone can at least try everything. Whether it's a smart idea to do or not, that's entirely up to the player. But
yeah, there's definitely some things where you kind of like, because I think in the book you say the best thing to do is everybody has like 3 pips in everything minimum, so that you can, because you've got quite a good table, and like 1 is pretty much you cannot, even though you've got a pip in it, it's pretty much like once in a lifetime. 2 is with some luck. 3 is attempts fine. 4 is no, you're gifted at this, and 5 is like awesome, and then 6 is like we're going to supernatural levels at that point. So I think that again, that succinctness of your system is again feeding into that lore, because you could have a character who's like constantly using their soul power to push like their luck, and but that takes away from them, because like that like kid, like obviously they're not kids, but like that like childish-esque interesting person, because they keep having to like drain themselves to get through all these situations, is slowly becoming more and more just nothing. Yeah. I think that's a really cool idea. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to like the Kickstarter and the back end element of like the Kickstarter itself is I think it's called The Darkening, if I remember rightly, or The Darkening of One's Soul.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so in this game you can consume souls in order to gain soul power. But what this does is it has like a negative effect on everybody's perception of you, especially other wanderers, because you're doing like the taboo thing. You're doing the wrong thing, which makes your presence to like almost outright offensive to other wanderers, is how I kind of got it. That's a really cool mechanic. Considering that your thing's so morally grey, why did you put in that kind of like penalty for that?
That's a really good question. So that's one of the more recent additions to the system. We played around with like a humanity scale, kind of like vampires. But again, it was like I'd rather roleplay dictate the character's humanity rather than a number on a sheet. So then we're like, I think it's Brandon Sanderson, you know the author. Sanderson, amazing author. He does like lectures on like all manners of story writing, and one is on building magic systems.
Yeah,
and one of his key points is that there's always a trade-off that has to be a price for your magic.
Yeah.
So magic, I'm using magic in a very loose term here for wanderers, but it is magic, I guess. So
well, he in that lecture, if it's the one that I've he's talking about, like obviously his fan, but he does make comparisons to, like other power sets from like popular media. So I think he talks about like Game of Thrones, like warging at one point, which is not like magic in the traditional sense.
Yeah, I mean the magic systems he comes up with are just so out there. So they're incredible. Those books definitely have inspired me for all manner of things, not just this game, but
eat metal, get super speed.
Exactly, get hit by lightning and blow up walls and ceilings. Yeah, cool. I've lost my train of thought now. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so this trade-off is it's a wanderer's moral, basically. It's not an. I guess you could say it's our morals too. You don't want to go around stealing people's soul, but so the trade-off is soul power is precious. It's quite hard to get back, but there is this temptation. You can take it if you want, but the price is you become detestable to other wanderers. So I did want that sort of soul stealing ability, because soul power is actually quite precious, and I wanted that temptation. Like, would your character do it?
Especially if you'd like seen multiple people die to like that follower character that you spoke about, like, and you see what they do. Like, it's almost like well, the weapon of my enemy must work on my enemy, sort of thing. Like, and we see it all the time in like hero narratives. Do I do what they do to win, or do I rise above it? So it's again another complex moral choice, which could guarantee their survival, but like.
And then the other thing that you mentioned as well was that the final burn as well, burning like the sun. You can make a conscious choice to use up all your remaining soul power, and it basically counts for double when you're doing the manifestation. So there's that option as well. It's like, do you sacrifice yourself? Do you be selfish, quote unquote, and steal someone else's soul power? Do you try and run? Do you fight? What do you do? So. It was just another option. Yeah. It was decay. It's called is the mechanic.
Yeah, the idea of like it wearing away. So before we get into the back end thing, I've just checked a note quickly, and one of the things that I'm going to try and do a bit more with people when I have these interviews to show that I've like read the rules and stuff is to like basically pitch you a character that I'd like to play in your game, and see if it would work, and and obviously you might give me some notes and be like, you can't do that because blah 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 blah, etc etc. So I came up with a character who is a young man, obviously a wanderer. He has... So you have this thing called needs, and his needs is... he is formerly from a wealthy family, like his and basically he uses that wealth to fund these like expeditions, kind of. They don't get them. Like he just kind of phones them up every now and then to get money. They don't always oblige because he doesn't tell them what. So sometimes he does. But basically, he's a bit of a thrill seeker, but one of the things that he does when he's been with somebody, if he makes a particularly strong connection with someone, and then the call to wandering comes before he leaves, he erases himself from their memories because he thinks that he realizes that it might be too painful, because he realizes I may never see this person again. Like, and it could be like a potential lover, like a kid who's attached to them, who they've like taken care of. It might be another wanderer who he's been traveling with for some time, and he kind of goes, this is going to hurt, so before I go, bop, like, and they're a bit like, and basically he gives off this facade of being like really happy all the time, but actually he's like miserable because he realizes like everybody he's ever cared about, he on purposely like erases himself. And obviously it doesn't always work because there's still got to be successes and failures. But that's worse in his mind, like the fact that they're going to remember him, and he knows that they're going to remember him because from what I understand, you get a sense if your stuff works, even if you're doing it on someone who's not reacting. That's worse to him. He carries that guilt around with him because, again, that person told me secrets, rah rah rah. Like, what do you think? Is that somebody who could exist in Wandering's Call?
Yeah, that's a perfect character. Yeah, it's... Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that, really. It's just perfect. It's sort of someone who has an idea of what their morals are, even if they're a bit grey, because I personally think that's quite a selfish act. It's like, how dare you take someone else's memories and they might want to remember you, even though it hurts.
100%, and that's the thing. Like in his eyes, like we're all the heroes of our own story. He's like, I'm doing this to help you, and everybody else is like looking around at him like, no. That's awful, why are you doing that? And he's like, you don't understand, like, sort of thing. Because again,
it'd be interesting to throw that character into a situation where they can't do that. Like they're taken away, or the person that they wanted to erase the memories of are taken away. It's like, do they panic that this person might try and hunt them down, or plaster their face all over the internet going, have you seen this person? That's quite dangerous.
Yeah, 100%, because like followers have the internet, like, because I like the fact that you make that thing as well, like, people in the Wandering's Call have the internet, like, if you can get a phone, like, you can access the internet, which is fine. And I'm like, that's actually like such a cool idea, because then you can, like, obviously as long as you're not like plastered to your phone, like, that's rude, but like, you're like, how my character gets their smartphone out and Google's like how to change a tyre. And
there is actually an optional rule, because I have thought about this, or we have, I should say. If you don't want that ability, like for players just to be able to look stuff up, because it can take the mystery out of a few things. You can rule that this soul power interrupts like electrical signals.
Well, yeah, it's like some people are going to be here like, well, why can't they just get on a boat or a plane? And I kind of glossed over this, and I'm sorry, but like, you did include that cool caveat of like, the faster a piece of transport goes, like, the worse it is for them. Like, it's
It's like your brain's being pulled at a different speed to your body.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous, and it makes you very, very ill.
Oh, there's an anime where their powers kind of do that to them. Is it? I think it's Fairy Tail and Dragon Slayers. Dragon Slayers can't go on any form of like transport. Like, because when they feel trapped, and two, it makes them like extremely motion sick. So like they like boats are a no, trains are a no, cars are a no, and they're like bleh. But yeah, so I think it's that. It might be something else, but I have a feeling it might have been there. But yeah, I think it's a really great game you've got. I think it's a really cool and quite original concept. I can't think of anything like it off the top of my head, apart from like old Vagabond and old Ronin movies, and they're not 100% the same. Like,
I think it's a really interesting play on destiny as well.
Yeah,
it's like is your whole life planned in front of you? Because at time, or quite often, the wandering seems random. But yeah, there are, again, I don't want to say too much because I think it would be a bit of a spoiler, but the wandering is interesting. It's not just a mechanical device for marshals to get players in the right location. There's a reason it takes you to certain places, and that lore is in the book. Nice.
So the Kickstarter then. You've got a Kickstarter out for this TTRPG. When did that start, and how long's it got?
We're back on halfway through, actually, as of this morning. So we've done 2 weeks. We've got 2 weeks to go. I think we're 120% funded now.
Wow,
great.
That's great.
Super happy with that. For like so obviously it's our first game that we've done together, coming out of nowhere to get that amount of support. It just blows me away, frankly.
If you don't mind me asking, because obviously we British people don't like talking about money, how much did this sort of project, did you need for this sort of project to get off the ground?
What the target was, 1,300 was about what we set. Obviously with Kickstarter, there's a very fine balancing act of setting the target reasonably, because I think people are very wise to, if you just set like 100 quid, obviously that's going to get backed. But with books, there is such a big upfront cost. That's why we decided to Kickstarter it. And the great thing about publishing and printing is economies of scale. You very, very quickly do get quite low. The cost price does lower, but you need to know numbers roughly to get that.
Yeah.
So that's why Kickstarter works really well. Let's say I did one previously that ended up just over 400%, I think, funded. And it just allowed me to only order the books we needed, plus a few spare, obviously, that we're going through.
What sort of things can you get? What sort of tiers do you have on your Kickstarter? I have on purposely not looked at your Kickstarter because, again, I don't want to buy anything at the minute. So what sort of tiers do you have? Do you have like a physical tier and like a PDF tier, or do you have like a special edition thing? Like, is it just simply like, you can get it digitally or physically? Pick one.
Yeah, you can back at £6 for the PDF, and you get the full PDF. And then there's a PDF and book, like a physical hardback book. There's a trade option as well. So if you want 3 copies, you get a little bit of a discount. And then there's a limited edition Kickstarter version as well. You get a few little extra goodies with that. It's a very fancy sort of silver foiled book. Plus you get to create a named NPC. That's pretty cool. In the lore section as well.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, I did that for the last one. I think 4 or 5. There's 5 NPCs in my last book that were written by other people.
I might have to check out your Tales of the East RPG or Eastern Realms. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, so obviously it's economies of scale. I quite like the design of the book that we have. Like it, I don't know, you won't be able to see this, but on the overlay, I've got it in like a little speech bubble. It's just a black book with like the rune for it. It's again simple, elegant. So that's a silver foil, like different cover. I can imagine being somewhat similar or somewhat more intricate. That's pretty cool.
Intricate, yeah. That cover. Have you ever played Aegon?
Yes.
Or Argon, I don't know.
Aegon, I think it's Aegon, like Aegis, but with an OS at the end. But yeah.
Yeah, that's such a freaking cool.
That's made by the same person who does Blades in the Dark.
Is it? That might be where I've heard that from then. Because when you were describing it, I was like, I've heard of something like that.
Yeah, because it's made by the same person. So
and it's a very, very simple system. Indeed, you have like 3 stats. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, their artwork and cover is just so beautiful. I wanted to not copy it, obviously.
Emulate.
Sort of, yeah, sort of stripped back, sort of just really clean, modern, beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's I think it's a really good product. Are you going to be like doing like once the Kickstarter's done? Are you going to be doing like review copies and stuff, like using people? Because I know that I think me and Gareth want to maybe get our hands on a review copy if possible. So if that's okay,
I'm sure we can sort that out.
Yeah, and then because it's what I've seen in the playtest material is really good. Like, I'm not just saying that because like I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I've seen like some like masters of the craft do their thing. So like my friend Matt Click, who made Mecha Hack from the Black Hack, is probably one of the best simplistic game designers, and he's also worked on like the One Ring RPG. He like he was like in charge of Strider mode, like lone play, like one player thing of One Ring, like officially. Laurie O'Connell, who has made some amazing games that are just weird. Like they've got a hex crawler called Hieronymus. And it's basically Hieronymus the painter, and you basically work through his paintings, and at different tiles you do different things. They've also got one about being trans in a dystopian society, which is pretty funny. Because trying to be trans on the NHS waiting list, it's easier to be a lich, apparently. So you've got Lichcraft. Lichcraft, and Panny as well, who made The Shadow of Mog, which is like a dystopian underground. And I've seen like a lot of good design, and this is up there with like its simplicity, but its depth is good. It's a really kind of cool and what I believe is like original concept. Like I said, I've not heard anything about like it. So I think you and your team should. I know there's only 3 of you, so it feels kind of weird to say team, but it is a team. I think you and your team should take a great bow at that, and I respect it like so much. So yeah.
Thank you. It's been a real labour of love. This we wouldn't be pushing it out there if we didn't really love it to bits. And obviously we've been playtesting like mad, and just. It's such a good feeling. It really is such a good feeling getting this thing that we've sort of worked on, as friends. We're all creative people, and we all do creative things as our jobs as well. So, just really, really proud to get it out there. I'm really glad that you think it's simple, but with depth. I always get worried about using the word simple because it's not a simple game.
No, people sometimes take simple to be like insulting, and that's why I've been kind of caveating everything with like, please don't take offence because I don't mean it that way. Like,
I use the word simple because I don't really know how else.
One of the reasons why Mecha Hack, Matt's game, is like my favourite game to play, apart from it being giant anime robots, is the fact that it is just like, I could make a character for everybody in like half an hour, and then we just go and blow shit up. Like, and even though like that's simple, and then but if I do play a campaign, there's like, well, what mods do I need? Like, do we play it like, what happens if they start like being very heavily damaged and they can't get back anywhere? Because like, you can get out of your mech, but obviously you're a lot more vulnerable. Like, so like there's like those sorts of things create choices, and some people get like decision paralysis, I think, and they kind of get like, because they're like, how do I? But if you have that simple thing that can branch off into many different things, that can be a bit more fulfilling, and I think that's what Wandering's Call has the potential to do in a big way. So thank you very much for it.
You're very welcome.
If you would so kindly shout yourself out, shout your team out, where they can find you, etc., etc., we'll begin to wrap up.
Lovely. So yeah, if you can find us across the internet. As I say, I'm Shaun M Vale. You can check out shaunmvale.co.uk. I've got some free D&D stuff on there as well for you to download, as well as bits and pieces you can buy. Amy is our lead artist, as I said, Amy Jane Hardy. Again, just search for her name. You'll find her everywhere. Amazing artist from up here in the lakes, north of England, for our international viewers. And yeah, Robin Stomp, again, yeah, just it's very handy as well having these quite unique names, because literally just Google that and you'll find us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, Twitch. I have my own personal Twitch channel, Shaun M Vale, and there is Wanderers_TTRPG as well. I shall be streaming there a couple of times in the next couple of weeks. I've gone through game design and we've gone through a bit of maths as well, on how I came up with the system, and yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
No worries. Thank you so much. Thanks again to Gareth as well, the charging badger himself, our favourite angry mammal, for putting us in touch, getting everything involved. This has been the Pod of Many Things, Cross the Cavern of Rolls, the first in a new chapter. And yeah, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, I've been Addison, your furbog friend, and I hope you're safe, I hope you're well, and I hope you have a wonderful time. See you in a bit. Bye.